There we are. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and former Georgia Bulldog head coach Jim Donnan, the Hall of Fame. We are happy that he is with us and he can answer all of your G-Day questions. If you have some questions, go ahead and put them into the comment section. Hit us up and we will get to them after we answer the ones from the dog event. So, and also please share this with your friends. We would greatly appreciate that if you were to put this on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, whatever the other ones are. Basically, if you're on a social media platform, LinkedIn, I don't care, stick it on all of them. If you want to share it on any of your dating apps too, that's fine too. Let the ladies know what you're into, and of course if you have Coach Donnan on there, that's probably going to get you a lot of play with the ladies. So let's be sure to share that share the show wherever you can.
We'll show more of those NC State pictures that we did
last week.
Tell
young buck with hair.
Tell them to send me some casseroles.
Yeah. Let's share it with your next door neighbor who's good at making casseroles. She'll bring you the coach a few. So we really appreciate it. And shout out to our sponsors, AccuW Brewing Company, Dead Soxy, and their home run sale, Your Pie Pizza restaurants, and of course our friends at Athens Ford. We'll talk about all those folks later on in the show. But we really appreciate you joining us. Let's get right to it. Coach, G-Day is in the books. It is over with. I thought it was a good day. To me, walking away from that, if I'm a Georgia fan, a few questions, but to me, generally, it was very positive. Very few injuries. Just a couple guys got banged up. So you come out of it injury-free. Little sloppy here and there, but overall, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm like, hell yeah, back to back. Let's go. Give me your take on the day.
Well, one of the best things about having a game like that is exposure for everybody, because nobody can watch practice and a lot of question marks and the unknown is just out there. Everybody just critiques it to the max, and now you have a chance to actually see these guys on the hoof and watch what they do. And as a coach, from a coach's perspective, that's what I try to do, because we have a general manager on here, and
big week coming up for me.
He will be telling us all about that. But I really feel like the fact that it was such a good production from a standpoint of organization. I mean, getting all those teams together, it's hard enough when you have one get ready for a game, but both. And the fact we had all the subs going in for the kicking game, and weren't a lot of sloppy penalties. Wasn't on the ground much from a perspective of fumbling. But, there's some things that you can certainly hone in on. But if you just look at Kirby's perspective, I would think that one of the things he wanted to get out of the game was to see, just exactly how Beck could compete along with Vandergriff against the twos, because there's certainly a decided difference in the twos and the ones as far as the secondary in particular and the pass rush. So Beck was able to get out there and make some really good throws. He missed some short ones, but he's always had trouble with that. And that's usually true with a guy that's got a big arm, the touch factor. So, but I would say the overwhelming for me for the weekend, though, was the fact that Marius Mims has decided to stay here. And that's huge for Georgia in a lot of ways, not just because you got another player, but you got a player with his potential. He's a very young kid that is growing into a man's body, and certainly has some issues that anybody that all of us have had, that in the homesickness, whatever it might be, and you got to be kind of a mentor to him with Coach Smart. And he realized, I'm just speaking from what it looks like, that maybe moved a little bit too quickly trying to do that. And that's what about the fact that you have to finish up the school year and get your grades in and all. And so I think it's very, very good that Amarius helps our depth, and he'll certainly have a chance to play a lot, not only this year, but in the future. But my basic take on the whole thing is just a very good amount of athletes that can really run and are well coached and potential for an outstanding team. You got a veteran quarterback. You got a lot of good skill people. The other thing I wanted to mention was Gilbert was just what I had been talking about all spring. There's no question about his magnitude and what he'll do for our team, along with
He's
Bauer.
kind of fat, though, Coach.
He's what?
He's kind of fat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that's coming from. He might could lose 5 or 4, but you just look at his.
He looks great.
I think that's something he overplayed. People were trying to make something that isn't there, but his body, the way he can control his body in the red zone, and the way he can get open. Kirby mentioned he missed a couple blocks, but hey, Gronk misses some blocks, but you're not going to fire him. So, Kirby wants them to do everything well, and that's what we'll do. But I see a lot of potential for this team. And the thing that's going to be good now is you've got the May situation coming up where they can continue to lift weights, throw on their own, and defend on their own. And then you got summer school where we'll get 6 or 7 more guys in that signed with us, particularly Humphrey and Singletary, to help our secondary. And then you add maybe a transfer there. I don't know for sure what position, but we'll probably see some of that. But we'll see here in the next few days what's going to happen on that he asked me about what I said about he didn't want me to say that about Gilbert. He wants to critique him. No, I just think really we'll see the next 10 days here between now and May 1st who's going to stay here that we might thought would be leaving, and maybe somebody will leave. But there's going to be a few kids. You can't blame them. I mean, they see the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah, there'll be some roster movement for sure. I encourage everyone to not take a lot of grand takeaways from a spring game because it's not the same kind of football. They're doing a showcase. It has different goals in mind, so that's one thing. Particularly, though, it is a spot where quarterbacks are able to show what they can do passing the football because there's a ton of opportunities for it. And I think you saw really on the field that Stetson Bennett by far and away is Georgia's best quarterback because he does all the things well with more consistency. You don't get to this level if you can't throw the football well, period. So Carson Beck can make the throws. Stetson Bennett can make the throws. Brock Vandagriff can make the throws, but can they make them with a level of consistency that you need, not the stall-out drives? And I think you saw both with Beck and Vandagriff. They're just not there yet in terms of consistency.
And general manager, you got that right. But I think something that everybody needs to put in their memory bank and put in their projection here is that really isn't the Georgia offense that you saw Saturday. We're not a drop back team. We're a play action. We hardly ever, the first play that Beck threw was a play action, but we didn't do much under center. We didn't throw many rollouts. We didn't throw hardly any bubble screens, any tunnel screens. A lot of the things that weren't even focused on Saturday. You're not going to see that many drop back passes in the first 5 games, I wouldn't think. I mean, we're more of a RPO, play action, dink and dunk, and then go deep. So, but the one thing that I would say too that I forgot to is there shouldn't be quite as much clamor about who we have at receiver, because if you start adding those guys up and adding the production that they've had collectively, that's a pretty good group when you add certainly Kieris Jackson and Don Blaylock to McConkey and A.D. Mitchell. And you saw Meeks' ability. He's either really good or sometimes he drops. He's got a lot of potential too. And then, of course, Arian Smith. Wow, the other Smith kid's got potential too. So, we got the kid from Houston coming in. So I think our receiver room looks good, except maybe for another deep threat guy, which they might look for in the portal. I don't know. We like that speed, but I wouldn't trade this team for many teams. So maybe a pro team. There might be a couple, but I like our roster.
Yeah, I mean, in that list of wide receivers, I mean, we're going to add Marcus Rosemy-Jackson in there too. He looked pretty big. And Dylan Bell, the guy you mentioned out of Texas, a lot of people are sleeping on him. That kid can fly. And when he plays, the stuff that we've seen coming out of Texas, it's not like he's playing against the Little Sisters of the Poor. He's playing against some very tough competition in Texas, and he has looked fantastic. Dayne, I'll go back to your talk about the quarterbacks. A lot of quarterback talk coming out of this afterwards. But at the same time, we also saw a couple just awful series by Stetson Bennett, batted pass, incomplete pass, drop pass, and it's almost like it's Bennett reminds me sometimes of a quarterback who has like one or like a car. You talk about cars and maintaining the car, and every once in a while he has just kind of this backfire series. And then he goes out and he runs the team down the field. And I think if you accept the fact that you're going to have one bad series in there, or as Kirby Smart called them, boneheaded plays or a boneheaded decision or something like that, just accept that that's in there, and you know that that's it's baked into the formulation of how it's going to be. And you don't just focus on the boneheaded stuff versus the long passes to Arian Smith, the Carson Beck throws, and you look at the totality of it. I think that's where when Kirby was asked post scrimmage, hey, what about the quarterback? She's like, look, there's no question who our starter is. This is our guy. But if you've got a backup quarterback, and I thought at times Carson Beck looked fantastic. He looked really good with the twos, and Coach makes a good point. That's a lot easier to do that with the twos than the ones. But Brock Vandegrift being able to tuck and run. And I know a lot of people go, I don't want to hear about quarterbacks. I don't want to hear about who the backup is. I don't want to hear about this. But just look at Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia. His quarterbacks get injured. He's just a run of bad luck where guys get banged up, and you have to know who the number 2 quarterback is. So to me, I really enjoyed being able to watch those guys for an hour and a half on Saturday, flinging the ball around, tucking and run, making decisions. That interesting delivery that Brock Vandegrift had to Don Blaylock, Carson reading the defense and making throws. We got a ton of questions from the folks here about the tight ends. Hey, the tight ends look so good. Eddie from Ackworth and Phil Rogers all saying, hey, Coach, what about using 14 personnel with all those tight ends you have? So to me, that offense, we can nitpick over the quarterbacks, but man, you got to be very excited about what that offense did. You just mentioned all those wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs look great. Hell, the offensive line looked great. I know everyone's like, what happened to our generational defense? But Coach, this offense could put up some sick points.
Yeah, I think the other thing you got to remember is both teams knew what was going on. I mean,
very true.
Defense pinning their ears back, not worried. We didn't run any draw plays. We didn't run any screens. I mean, it was, we were going against Oregon the first game and didn't want to show anything new that we might have put in this spring that Coach Lanning hadn't seen. But he'll have a good feel for it, knowing that going against us so much. But I guarantee you, unless you're really a negative person, I mean, I'm talking about really, really negative. It's hard not to be a glass half full guy with this team. I mean, I don't know how you can't help but be.
I'm with you, Coach. And you know me, I worry, I obsess over the negatives, and I look for stuff like that just because, you got so many years of being let down. You just wonder where the problem's going to pop up. But when I look at that running back group, I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And Branson Robinson isn't even here yet, Dejon Edwards looked great. Hell, Savon Clark looked fantastic. Then you go to the tight ends. You hated not being able to see Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers play, but you got to see Oscar Delp. I mean, he tore it up. And Arik Gilbert scoring a couple times. That was fantastic for him. Long journey for him.
Who was that? Who's Arik Gilbert?
Yeah. This is this guy. He's 14. A little heavy set, but you'll recognize him when you see him.
Gilbert. But here's the thing about which I always liked when you have a really great player, and it's not anything but the coach in me, but I always like for one of my best players to maybe have a little something wrong with him. Maybe not as much as Bowers did, but I enjoy those guys missing spring because that was just one less chance that they were going to get hurt. And so Brock will be fresh as a daisy here once we get going. He should be on the Olympic. He could run the marathon as much as he's run over the last few weeks. They put him through their paces for that. But we could get into a lot and review the game and all that, but let's get some questions. But I do want to mention the fact that I feel like the cohesiveness of our staff showed out pretty well Saturday from the standpoint of all of a sudden you got a new receiver coach, you got a new linebacker coach, you got a new secondary corner coach, and a new O-line coach, but there didn't look like a lot of organizational flaws out there as far as who's supposed to be in the game, not having enough guys on the field. Our rotations were good. We got guys in and out of the game. And if that can happen with 15 practices, you can imagine what's going to happen with fall camp. So I think that part in itself, as an old coach, I always look for that. We didn't look sloppy. We looked like we knew what we're doing. And there's a real value in that when you play the other teams. They expect a lot from Georgia because they're defending national champion and all that. But you go out on the field against a team that overmatches you, and then you all of a sudden everything they do looks like they're not going to do anything to stump their toe, then that makes it even harder to beat them. So as we've talked about so many times, most games are lost, they're not won. So I think that's what we got to really be big on. I know after 85, when we won the championship at Oklahoma, Switzer told us in the spring, said, I don't want to come into any meetings after a game on Sunday and hear about mental errors and mistakes. But we need to do just enough to win. We're better than everybody on our schedule. And we ended up losing one game, and that was what happened to us. We fumbled 2 punts inside the 10 against Miami and lost and didn't get to play for the national championship. So even though we were better in 86, we beat ourselves one game, and that can happen. You gotta avoid losing as much as you try to win.
Hey, go back to that inaugural game, Dayne, that we had our inaugural watch-along game, that South Carolina game where Georgia beat themselves. And
people blamed us though because we didn't.
Well, they should have.
What
changed? Georgia just played. They played like shit. But coach nails it. I wouldn't notice, the guys coming off the sideline correctly and, the substitutions going smoothly. I don't see stuff like that. Coach does, and that's why we love having him on the show. So I know you got some questions. I do want to give a quick shout out to Eddie from Ackworth and Leanne said, Leanne Sedlock, excuse me, for sharing this on Twitter. It means a lot to us. So thank you, Leanne, and thank you, Eddie.
Coach, what I want to do is it's really.
What did they share? Our show?
Yeah, they shared the show like we asked them to right at the beginning. They went right to Twitter and put it out there for everybody. So
That's good.
Coach, I picked out 7 players that kind of caught my eye from G-Day, and I'm giving you a 10-second clock on each.
Are you trading for them, or are you going to do it?
Oh, yeah. I'm preparing them to be drafted. That's what I'm doing.
All right.
10-second max, and we've mentioned 3 of these. I'll start with those 3. Jackson Meeks.
Jackson has a lot of potential. He fights hard for the ball. He's got good hands. He just got to be more consistent, but really had a good look at him this spring. I like him.
Dajon Edwards.
Dajon's going to have that quick hiccup move, can get to the outside quick. He really runs inside pretty good, too, behind the big guys. I just don't see him being an every down player for us at this point with those 2 guys ahead of him. And I hope he stays here. You got to think he will, but he can play for a lot of teams and start for a lot of teams.
Oscar Delp.
Oscar took advantage of the reps he got with Washington being out and with the situation with Bowers. And, he's got a lot of potential, got to get stronger. No question about it. He's got good movement, can run in the open field, has a good future, but it's hard to see him being ranked over 5 or 4. It just depends on whether Seether is ahead of him and if Seether stays here, but he's got a good future, no question.
William Poole at corner.
I think it's a question of Lassiter being hurt, and they want to see Poole out there. He's more of a star guy to play the slot. Really improved last year. He's a fifth or sixth year guy that's going to come back and give us a lot of depth, helping special teams. I'm glad we got 31 playing for us.
Javon Bullard.
I tell you, this Javon, I talked to Radi about him. I think he and the other kid, Corey Thomas, are 2 guys that are really going to help us in the future. They're physical. They can cover pretty good. Not great yet, but they break on the ball okay. But they're going to be guys that are going to help us on special teams and get a lot of reps in the fall and probably both have to play in backup roles.
Warren Brinson.
here's a guy that's got a big body and is explosive. Just got to mature a little bit. You know, he had that off the field incident that can happen to anybody, but really takes advantage of our inside strength that these other guys has and can come in there and play pretty good. I've been impressed with the way he's developed.
And last one, close to your heart, Jared Zirkle.
We know Zirkle got a chance to win the game and got that kick. I was hoping he would be better on kickoffs. That was one of the things we recruited him for, but just don't see him playing a lot here right now.
Good segment. I like that. Let's clip that and just run it for the rest of the
show.
Everybody
gets on me for that. I mean, that's just the way I feel. I mean, I don't know if that could happen, but
hey, Coach, it's the honesty, which is why we have you on the show.
I could go through the whole roster on that. I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
Hey, we got a summer of shows to fill, so we can do it that way.
Yeah, we'll do 6 more next week.
I don't say that braggingly. I just feel like I got a good beat on these guys.
No, that was good. Hey, I want to go back to touch on the Ja'Cory Thomas. That kid laid out a hit, Coach. I think it was on Delp or somebody, but he is a hitter. And I think you went over it pretty fast talking about how this team can run. When you mentioned Warren Brinson, and I thought our screen at left tackle, the backup left tackle, looked really good in his kick slides. That is a fast team across the board. Malachi Starks flying around back there. Dejon Edwards running step for step with that Jackson Meeks catch. He had a great catch down the sideline, but I don't know how much better Daylen Everett could have played that ball in the air.
Yeah, I would say this.
No, I'm sorry, that was Nyland Green. My apologies, but Nyland Green running with him. But the speed on that field
Everett was the first play of the game against when the red team had it, when they threw the faked the ball up inside and threw the ball deep to Smith. That was Everett that tried to cover him, and he covered him pretty well. But you know, I think there's the other thing too. We played very limited coverages, and our secondary is going to benefit from the fact that our offense is going to put other teams in some really harm's way, and the fact they're going to have to be coming from behind. And you know, I was out there one day and I was talking to my favorite defensive player, 88 in your program, one in your heart, and he said, "Tell you what, Big Daddy," that's what he calls me, or Boss Man. I can't remember which one he called me. He said, but
Big Daddy, I love it.
He said we put on 13 out there beside me and nickel, we can get after the quarterback's ass. So that's going to be good. Some impact freshmen, 13's going to develop, and we feel like Marvin Jones is going to come in here too. But also,
so Michael Williams.
I like Everett at corner. I think he's got a lot of potential, and it's just hard to play man to man, down after down, like we did the other day, and expect to, be successful against most teams. But we mix up our coverages. You know, we got one of the best secondary coaches ever in Kirby, and he's got good help with Muschamp and our new coach too. So we'll have a lot of different looks. And somebody was mentioning about Pops playing man coverage. It's tough to play man, be a physical linebacker and do all the things you got to do, and then play backside the backfield. I mean, Nakobe had to really work on that. Remember the Florida game? Remember some problems we had a couple years ago? All those guys got a lot better at it as they got more and more coaching from Schumann. So I can see all those linebackers getting better at coverage for sure.
I did take a look at the walk-ons on the field too, because in most historically in G-Day, that's just an opportunity for walk-ons to get in the stadium, get some playing time. But obviously Georgia's had walk-ons that have contributed heavily, even Dan Jackson last year in the national championships. I'm trying to see who could potentially be in those roles. We've heard about Kirk Nisley at running back having a good spring when he had opportunities, but I was impressed with Jalen Kennedy. I mean, that's a really good athlete running with some big-time receivers out there. And I thought he looked pretty good overall for the day.
Yeah, he did. And that's one thing that I always liked about G-Day too, is get some of those guys down there to have a chance to, flourish in front of their family. And even if you don't get to play much in the fall, you can always say, hey, I got a chance to really rock during G-Day back in 2022. I mean, that's a good thrill for those kids. and they deserve it. I mean, they go out there and run the other team's plays and do all the stuff they got to do to help the team, and that's why they get a ring, and that's why they that was another thing that just was kind of awe-inspiring. See those guys walk out there, and it's kind of tough to think about them not being here next year, but just walking out and getting that championship ring, there's nothing like it. I mean, we can talk about all the things, individual awards, all this stuff, but there is no greater reward than team victory, team victory, team victory. And you cap that off with a championship ring. There's nothing like it.
It's a good-looking ring, too. And I'm with you, Coach, when you saw all those seniors and guys who are departing the program line up and get their rings and hold them out there. You see just the sheer amount of talent that's leaving. Again, for the person who's always worried about when's the other shoe going to drop, you get a little nervous about seeing all that production leaving. But then, like you said, with Jalen Carter and Michael Williams, 13 side by side, what they can do. And I actually tweeted out mid-game that it was unfair when Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith went up against the right side of Georgia's line and they ran a twist or a stunt. It was really unfair. And I'm thinking, man, good luck Oregon stopping this. Good luck South Carolina. Good luck Auburn. Because those two side by side, and then Michael and Marvin Jones and Warren Brinson, Ingram's Dawkins on the inside. Tyrion, I thought he had a big game. So that's just
they know the rush. Like I said, they know they're not doing anything but throwing. And the other thing is defensive back. So what if they hit a deep ball? What are they going to do? Throw you out of the stadium? I mean, it's just playing. They're playing a practice game, so they're going to play over aggressive and they know that it's not a true game. But I mean, it's not like it's okay to hit a deep ball. But you probably saw more deep balls hit Saturday against our defense than you'll see all next season.
Yeah, very true. Speaking of seasons, right now is it's baseball season, and we had a promo set up with our friends at Dead Soxy, and it didn't work. And it's just it's silly. It's frustrating because we just happen to pick a bad series. Now, our friends at Dead Soxy, they make fantastic socks. You'll absolutely love them. We wear them. We give them away whenever we get a few extra pairs. But if you go to Dead Soxy and you get the Georgia-themed socks, you can always use promo code UGASports to get 25% off. Fantastic deal, right? Well, they had a deal with the Georgia versus Texas A&M game where they were going to give you 10% off for every home run that Georgia hit. So Georgia hits 3 home runs in the 3 games versus Texas A&M, you get 30% off. If they hit 6 home runs versus Texas A&M, you get 60% off. And it wasn't just one game; it was all 3 games. And Georgia lost 2 out of 3 games and no home runs. So what they did, they changed it to a straight 40% off. So you can go to Dead Soxy right now, use promo code HOMER, HOMER, like the homers that didn't happen. And even though the Georgia baseball team kind of let us down on the long ball this past weekend, Dead Soxy is not going to, and they won't let you down because their stocks stay up. They have the true stay technology. They don't slip down, and you can get them at a much better deal than even our normal UGAsports promo code of 25% off. If you use promo code HOMER, you'll get them at 40% off. So if you got graduation gifts that are coming up, I know my son's graduating, all his little buddies that I coached and have known for 100 years, think about what I'm going to get all them. You got it'll be Father's Day in a couple months, Mother's Day's coming up, all that stuff. Go buy Dead Soxy and use the promo code HOMER, get 40% off. And it's only this week. This isn't a long time deal, so do it right now. Also, I want to mention our friends at Academy Brewing Company. With this baseball season, you're now able to watch the Braves. That's a great place to go watch a Braves game. They have fantastic beer. They have fantastic food. And here's something new. Dayne, you'll probably like this because I know you're a nerd. May 2nd from 7 to 9, they're going to have Harry Potter trivia night. So they have trivia nights all the time. They have game nights all the time. They have classic car shows out there. There's always something going on. But on May 2nd, from 7 to 9, you can actually take part in Harry Potter trivia nights. There's always some sort of themes or some sort of fun stuff going on at Academy Brewing Company, which is why we really enjoy them. So I think my wife will probably go there and win that whole thing. So it wouldn't shock me.
I am a nerd, but I've never seen a second of a Harry Potter movie or read a word of the books. So
Wow.
I'm more of a nonfiction guy, man. I like documentaries.
Okay. So
But,
just not a
but
wizarding nerd, regular nerd.
But you
You're
did.
my nerd. I love you.
But he did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's true.
Well, he picked 7 good players. Those are all guys that kind of stood out to me too. So
Yeah, let's go for it. What else we got here?
Let's go to some questions from the dog vin at UGASports.com, which we should always talk about more on our show because that's how we stay employed. So go check out UGASports.com, become a member there. It is the oldest and I would say most invested community of Georgia fans on the internet going back to the 1990s. So go check out UGASports.com. This from HugDog18 says, Coach D, how do you evaluate players from the transfer portal and compare them to people in your current roster? He said it's always an attractive possibility of what could happen, but usually it's what will happen is going to be the way that shakes out. So how do you assess players in the portal and how they can fit in on your team?
Well, I would say you do it 3 ways. Number one, word of mouth. What kind of contact do you have? Do you have an ex-coach that you worked with that's in that conference, or somebody that has really good value that coached this guy in high school or junior college that can tell you about his true net worth? What kind of tape does he have? Look at what his value would be in relation to your own team, because you don't want to bring somebody in that can't beat out your present guys. That's not the issue. We've got to have a place for them too. That's the whole number 3. Do you have a spot? We're in a situation where we're around 88 or 89 right now. I don't know how many more guys are going to leave, but so I would think number one, how do they rate with your ability to scout them? Because the reason you're looking at them is you have a need, which I guess that would be the top thing. You have a need for that, whether it might be just an overall type person. You know what I mean? Like last year, we brought Tyke Smith in because we needed a star. By that, we needed a 5th defensive back, a guy that could play in the slot and cover people. And unfortunately, he got hurt, and we'll be able to add him back to our repertoire this year. We also brought in Darian Kendrick, who's an outstanding corner that we needed, a starter type guy. He'd been all ACC, played in the national championship game. So those are things that you look at as far as their value and what they can do for your team. You know what I'm saying? So I hope I answered that.
Good answer. Dayne.
Lost Dayne's volume there. You still talking, Radi?
No, there we go. I put myself on mute. I was yeah.
Were you talking to another general manager there? You're going to trade? Talking?
Hey, I got a trade for you.
We're trying to trade up in the first round. That's what we're doing.
All right.
BMAR67 wanted to know your general impressions from G-Day. We've covered that, but is there a player that calls your attention that we haven't discussed?
Well, I'd say Ernest Green, 71, left tackle because of the issues we had with some injuries at tackle and graduation. He got an inordinate amount of playing time, a lot of reps all spring, and got good feet. And the thing that's always good for me is when the other players talk you up, because there's nothing wrong about listening to different people outside the program and all that. But when a guy that plays with you or plays against you mentions you when he's talking about the team, that means you've got the respect of others. And that's hard to garner as a true freshman coming in right off the bat. So these guys know what it takes to play, and they're not going to mention you unless they feel like they can help you, because they all want to, help ourselves. So I think Green is a rising star for us, 71, and he's very upbeat as far as potential too. I mean, I can see him, and the thing I like about his foot movement, he can move around. And the other 2 guys we mentioned all spring, but we'll say something about is the way both Truss and Willock have moved in there and done a very solid job at guard. And it's pretty obvious if you just get out there, unless you're just almost blind and can't see, the immensity of our offensive line when you look tackle to tackle and look at those big guys at guard. I mean, we got a really big, huge offensive line.
And I hope people realize how good Warren McClendon is. I don't know how you can ignore it at this point, but even in G-Day, his effort was really, really good. And I think that that's a team leader for Georgia, like one of the best players on the team.
I'm going to tell you now, you got guys like Warren McClendon and Van Pran that can articulate like they can on their feet and also play like they play. Sometimes you're looking for something else because he didn't have that quite a background, but I'm telling you, Warren McClendon's solid as a rock. I mean, that guy is solid now. I really like Warren, and I like him. His leadership, like you mentioned there, GM, that was good. I like that. He's got good ability for the other guys to follow, and hey, he's taking on the challenge. He knows Mims is out there, and he knows we got some good young guys. And I saw him, as I told Radi, the first couple of practices, he was moving in at center to see what he could do there to give us some depth. And he's got that ability, kind of like Salyer. He can move around and do things. So good job for. I really like what he's been able to show us. And I mentioned Willock, just the fact that he came in overweight, he hurt his leg, had a rough first year, but he worked his way through it. But, boy, I'm telling you now, he's cut. I mean, he looks svelte at 325. I mean, he looks good.
It's weird to see an offensive line because, to me, in my mind, an offensive line, you kind of have a center, then you have the guards, then you have the tackles. It's almost like a low, like a valley getting to it. But this way you have a center, two guards, and then a couple tackles. I mean, that is a mammoth offensive line. You nailed it. And Coach is mentioning Ernest Green and what the other players are saying about him. Go to our YouTube channel that you're on right now. Check out the Cedric Van Pran interview. Check out the Warren McClendon interview. They do mention Ernest Green throughout that, as a young guy who's really turning some heads. And they have great things to say about Xavier Truss and Devin Willock. So, again, we could talk about these guys all the time, but I think it's very important for you folks to watch the players talk about each other and notice who they mention. And if you want to be negative about it, notice who they don't. But to me, it's big on who they love to talk about each other. If you're ever having a crappy interview with one of these guys, he doesn't want to talk about himself, ask him about one of his other players. Check out the Stetson Bennett interview. It's hilarious when he starts talking about Carson Beck. You can tell that these guys tease each other. There's not animosity there. Stetson was saying, look, Carson played on both teams, but our team won, and so we're making sure that he doesn't get the steak. He's got to eat the beanie weenies because he was on the losing team, even though he played on both, and he's trying to claim both. So just the teasing there that goes back and forth, and to hear Keely Ringo and Chris Smith kind of chirping at each other and just teasing each other was hilarious. So check out all our post-game interviews when you get a chance.
Yeah, speaking of interviews, last night I was able to attend the Hall of Fame banquet out here that they have every year that recognizing local high school players and some of our college guys like John Fitzpatrick won an award and Stetson Bennett. And it was good for me because three of my ex-players were also honored, Larry Brown, John Stinchcomb, and Robert Edwards. And they, guys that have done well after they've finished their career. But the point I want to get to here finally is I wish they had some kind of recording of Stetson Bennett getting up in front of everybody and tell them how much it meant to him to be the quarterback at the University of Georgia. The fact that that's all he ever wanted to do since he was a kid was be the quarterback at Georgia. Now, anybody that wants to find something wrong with him, that's fine. But I guarantee you that hit home with me because just the fact that he not only has had success, and you can talk about that up and down, but just from a ability to meet a goal and be the guy he wants to be, and he relishes that. And people say, why would he come back? All you got to do is listen to that, and you know why he came back. And
Yeah, we have a story about that from our own Dave McMahon, and Vern Lundquist was the keynote speaker out there. So check out the front page of UGASports.com for a recap.
hey, come on, one up me, Roddy. As soon as I finish, you got to one up me.
Well, hey, you didn't mention Dave. You didn't mention your boy's stats.
Dave, I'm going to tell you what, Dave is invaluable to our site, and he's invaluable to a lot of people in Georgia. Just the fact that he was out there last night kind of moving around people and introducing different people from the Hall of Fame. The guy's got contacts now. I mean, he does a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, we had not we, but our chapter here had the national director, Steve Hatchell, in last night, which shows, you know, it's pretty preeminent to have him here. He got some kind of award. I can't remember, but the fact that Georgia has the biggest chapter of any Hall of Fame groups in the country is a real tribute to a lot of people. Of course, Lauren Smith's done a tremendous job with that over the years. It was good to see Coach Dooley and Coach Rick there, and just a lot of value in the fact that Champ Bailey's going in the Hall of Fame this next year, and looking forward to that, and Richard Seymour going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio in August.
That's awesome.
We were talking about tackles, and I like this comment from Johnny on YouTube. It says, I'm glad Mims is back on the roster because 5-star Giants don't grow on trees, but modern college football is weird. And I think that sums it up perfectly.
Hey, that's good, Johnny. That's good. Johnny, be good.
Let's go to more questions over at UGASports.com. Here's a quarterback one for you, Coach. Big Old Dog, that's the handle, Big Old Dog, ask, what's the deal with inaccuracy with some short passes from Carson Beck? And then how do you help a quarterback correct that, especially considering how looked he good on some of the deep balls and crossing routes?
Yeah, I've always felt like the accuracy is the hardest thing to ever coach and teach. That's why guys are playing right field in Little League Baseball and other guys are pitching. I mean, you got to throw strikes be a pitcher, and it's hard to teach accuracy, touch, feel. You can get a little bit better anticipation, but you got to remember that some guys on the second team that are playing aren't going to run the routes efficiently as people on the first team do. So sometimes you're going to be playing with different receivers, and you're not going to look as good as far as you think he's going to run an angle at this degree and he runs a little bit more bent in, or another guy's going to break at a quicker pace than another. And so that's why you see some balls that look like the quarterback's not doing as well as he should. But some of these are the receiver's fault. But I think he's definitely right in the fact that that's not a real strength of Carson. He's more of a down the field type guy, and he's got a big arm. I mean, arm. He really always has. And he's got a good feel for the offense. Knows what we can do, and Coach Bunkin likes to throw the ball from the drop back stuff, and then no question that Carson's got more height and everything and can do that, whereas Brock is more of a rollout guy, although Brock did some really good things dropping back too. So we got a good room there. I hope that everybody's a lot of conjecture where the one or the other would leave. I hope they don't, because they've made a commitment to Georgia, and I hope they stay here.
You had made a comment on this earlier, but PeedTech1 did ask, is Jamon Dumas-Johnson good enough to be a 3-down linebacker? A lot of people criticize his ability in coverage at G-Day.
Yeah, I just feel like that maybe I've answered it earlier, but I will. The fact that some of the coverages that we would run to help him, we didn't run the other day. We wouldn't run some of those man under type deals with him in there that we would run with say another guy. So I think it's just a case that I feel like he can, but maybe not as much nickel and dime with him. If you have your regular people in there third down, he might, but he's just a young guy and he's got a lot of upside. So but he's making a very astute assumption, and watch that, and it was true. But you got to remember that it was a very controlled scrimmage that limited the defenses, and it's hard for let's just say you're playing a basketball game and you want Wilt Chamberlain run a full court press the whole game. that's not Wilt stuff. I mean, he's going to be in there inside playing zone, knocking the ball down. He's not going to go out there and press the guy. So I don't even know why I said Wilt Chamberlain, but I'm just saying any big guy would be hard to do that. Same thing true with linebackers. You got to mix it up and play zone, play some combo coverage, some read coverage where if the back releases in the flat, the corner takes him. And if he releases inside, you take him. We didn't do any of that. It was all pure man. And so he didn't have a chance to flourish in that resolve. But I'm glad we got him.
Yep.
This one from Gilbert Peterson, and Roddy mentioned him earlier, so I'm going to actually go to you first on this, Roddy, and then Coach can answer. Thoughts on Tyrion Ingram Dawkins? Is it possible that he starts at the 5 technique?
I mean, it's possible, absolutely, but I was very impressed with him. I know he was a little frustrated last year because he wasn't getting the playing time that he wanted, and we did report that because, as Coach mentioned, sometimes guys get homesick. Guys get a little, they get a little frustrated when they show up and can't quite get the playing time they want. But he seems very dialed in now, and he had a couple swim moves, very fast feet. Again, that's it's easy to go Jalen Carter and everybody else, but man, Zion Logue had a big game. Warren Brinson had a big game. Ingram Dawkins had a big one, and then Stackhouse. So I don't know how it's going to factor out, but yeah, you got to be very excited to have when you look over and see Nazir and Logue and Brinson and Ingram's Dawkins. You're like, okay, yeah, we're losing a lot of guys over here on this defensive front, but the guys behind them aren't, cream puffs, and they're pretty talented guys. So you got to like his chances.
Yeah, I think the one thing we can look at is collective group. There are 11 players supplementing each other and playing strengths and working around what our defenses can do. Maybe not have quite as many stars that stand out like the draft's going to show here in a couple of weeks, but collectively they're going to be good enough, and you add the offensive firepower that's going to make our team be able to play a lot more nickel maybe than just play regular defense, where you can really specify certain down and distance as far as different rushes, different type things. We've got enough players there on defense to be really good. Maybe not quite as dominant, but it's going to be a good defense.
We'll get to more questions from YouTube and Facebook, but Roddy, it's Tuesday at Your Pie, and I know that means double points on the app, but that also means you can get the Great White, you can get the Nat, you can get the Lineage, the Iska, plenty of options over at Your Pie.
Yeah, when you go into a place that's known for pure customization, you're like, okay, I'll pick my crust, I'll pick my sauce, I'll pick my cheese, I'll pick all my toppings. There is a group of people who are like, oh, that's a little complicated. Well, don't worry about it. You can walk in and just say, hey, look, give me a pepperoni pizza, give me a anchovy and olive, whatever you want. But I would recommend, if you're want to take a chance on a 6 to 8 pizzas that they know are crowd favorites, walk in and ask for the Southern Heat, my favorite. Go in and ask for the Great White, which is extra virgin olive oil, mozzarella, ricotta, and feta cheese on it. It's fantastic. Get the Lineage that has marinara, mozzarella, pepperoni, Italian sausage, red mushrooms, regular mushrooms, black olives, green peppers. It has everything on it. Barbecue chicken, the Nat is a fantastic one. So basically, they have their signature pizzas that have stuck around because everyone loves them. So try that, order them on the app. I mean, yeah, you can walk into any of these places right now and order behind the counter, but I'm telling you, if you want to get free food, use the app on Tuesdays and get double points, and then you'll get free pizzas and free salads and breadsticks and stuff like that. Also, last commercial for you folks, and I want to mention them because they're good friends of ours. Our friends at Athens Ford are having a fantastic spring, mainly by being able to have cars on the lot. There are a lot of places that don't have them. And if you're looking to sell yours, by all means, reach out to our friends at Athens Ford. They will give you a price on the spot. And they've reached out to me saying, hey, how's that Ford Explorer doing for you? We'll be happy to take it back. But they're being very aggressive in their purchasing of used cars because there's such a high demand. But they're actually doing a great job for it. I'm probably going to have to go out there and look for a new one. My son's graduating here. We might have to send him off to college in a vehicle. He's got this truck that he drives relentlessly, but about time for me to go out there and check out one of those Ford Escapes, or one of a little bit something with better gas mileage than that truck you drive. So when you get a chance, swing by our friends at Athens Ford, because they actually have cars on the lot, and they are being very aggressive in their inventory management. It's just like Coach talks about, you got to be aggressive in the transfer portal. They have been very aggressive in the transfer portal. They are getting units that they can move that are in great condition. And of course, everything you buy from them that's new or pre-owned up to 80,000 miles has a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. So you can shop there with confidence. Great place to go get your service done as well. So we'll talk about them more in detail next week when we maybe want to have a new car from out there. We'll see.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about how coaches are having to recruit their own teams, because in the work that Radi and I do, we hear a lot of players that are kind of considering the portal or seeing what their options are, and a lot of them end up staying at Georgia. In the case of Marius Mims, we saw him enter the portal, come back out, going to stay at Georgia. How is, I guess, it changed to where, you've always want to have good relationships on your team, but just the process of recruiting guys that are currently on your campus, has that been something you've seen kind of change in the last few years?
Yeah, I think it's changed just from a standpoint of there's an out for him a lot easier. It used to be a guy if he was going to leave, he'd have to sit out a year. So that's a very difficult situation to go somewhere and sit out a whole year unless you would go down to 1AA. I think the thing that you always do with your players and coaches maybe not.
Nope.
May have lost Coach there for a second. That was a good question for me too. That was
Hey, well, while we're waiting on the coach to come back, let's grab some of these here on the side. Phil Rogers wants to know, do we have to be down by 85 by August or by September? Yes. You have to be down by 85, which is why Coach mentions that there will be guys in the transfer portal.
What positions are you thinking that might end up being Radi? Because I've heard a few, but like that, a lot of that's conjecture, and so I'm curious if you've heard anything more definitive.
I think they're very heavy on the offensive line. Mims leaving didn't quite surprise me. I know how hard they worked to get him back, but if you're looking, you already saw Clay Webb depart. I could see a couple others do that as well. That wouldn't shock me. In other words, where are you heavy? Where are the conversations after G-Day, these kind of exit interviews saying, hey, look, we don't – they told Stetson Bennett a couple years ago, we don't see a whole lot of playing time for you here. Of course, that was in the fall camp, but, you have this conversation. So, yeah, they do have to get down by that.
Look at where the chatter is. So right now everyone is talking about tight ends, and it could be one of the best tight end rooms ever. Well, if you're not one of the tight ends featured in that top 4 or 5, maybe you're not going to hang out longer, especially if you've been here for a while.
Yeah, if you're Brett Seether or Rylan Goad, and I'm not saying either one of them would, but you're looking at, okay, let's run 13 personnel. You're going to have Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, and is it you, or is it Reed Gilbert, or is it Oscar Delp? And if it's Brett Seether out there in 13 personnel, then he's not going anywhere. If it's Rylan Goad, he's not going anywhere. But if you know that as much 13 personnel as Georgia runs and you can't do it, then maybe that's a guy who departs. But, yeah, you got to get to 85, by fall camp. So as Coach mentions, you might have a guy here or there hit the portal. And it's not a bad thing. It's, it's just roster management.
Coach paid his internet bill. He's back with us. And
I think the big thing there, too, is, you look at guys like Condon. That's a good move for him. He's got a chance to go play at SMU. Spear playing for Michigan State. Breeny's down at Arkansas. You got the kid Robinson playing at Mississippi State. Johnson at East Carolina. So, there's some guys moving around.
Coach, before you got cut off, you were talking about recruiting current players on your team to retain them. But then also you were saying, you do that with coaches sometimes too.
Yeah, you just talk to your players about here's where you are. Here's what you need to do. This is what I expect from you between now and fall camp. Challenge them a little bit. Or just the reality of saying, look, that right now you're not going to be able to play a lot. Maybe you can get special teams, but we're glad you're here. Be patient. Look at some of these seniors, what they were able to do by hanging on and doing the right thing. And some other guys, sometimes you just got to say, look, reality is you're probably not going to play here right away. So if you want to look at some possibilities, but you also tell them, you show them the film and show them this is why you're not playing. Here's the guy playing ahead of you. Here's what he's doing. And then from a coach's perspective, talk about their strengths and weaknesses, how they can improve certain areas. You've watched them on the field, the way they handle players, and I suggest maybe doing something a little different. But just like any boss, your number one job is articulate the method, tell them what you want, and then let them do it. You've got everybody pulling together, and that's what you want to do as far as analyzing your coaches too. See how they blend in and what support you. There can't be but one head coach. You got to be the guy that directs it. But I always felt like coaching the coaches was really the deal. I mean, you got to make sure they get the most out of what they can do. Some of them are better at other things than the others. So you just got to coach them up too. But
hey, Coach, here's a question for you from Super John Goldsmith. He says, I'm sorry if I missed this, but do coaches tell active players that there isn't a scholarship available for them this year? Would that happen to get them under the limit?
You mean just take their scholarship?
Yeah.
The way it used to be, you signed a 4-year scholarship and you had it no matter what, but now you have a 1-year renewable, but you usually don't take their scholarship unless they've done some things off the field to warrant that, or they're academically not making the progress, then you can justify taking it. But you just don't get a very good vibe for programs that take scholarships away from people. I mean, it'll catch up with you as far as public with the high school coaches and everything like that. I always felt like, hey, it was a two-way street. I offered you a scholarship. You made the commitment to me. I've made it to you. If I made a mistake bringing you in here, I'm not going to penalize you by taking your scholarship. But at the same time, you owe me every benefit of the doubt to let me try to develop you as much as I can too.
Good point. We had a question from Phil Rogers about Singletary. You mentioned him and Humphreys when they get here. Do you see Singletary play in safety or corner?
Well, he's got that potential. He could do either one, but you're always going to look at corner first because that's the hardest position. You can always move back there. It's not like safety's easy, but I think they'll look at him hard. He and Humphrey both at corner right off the bat. We've got Nyland Green and Lassiter and Everett. And, of course, Poole can play in there. But we need to get some really good cover guys. And what I like is Singletary and Humphrey, both big, angular, got long arms, can knock the ball down. And not only the arms to play the ball in the air, but to engage guys at the line of scrimmage and, hold them up and press coverage. It's hard to do if you got really short arms.
Yeah, Singletary's got a punch on the line that folks are really going to enjoy watching. Last question. We'll get this from Low Elo Joe. It says, Coach Donnan, have you ever seen a better group of tight ends on one roster? And somebody else pointed out that, well, you did have Randy McMichael, Ben Watson, Jermaine Wiggins. You've had a few of your own there. So, and a lot of people ask about, would Georgia ever use 14 personnel? Basically, the entire comment section is about tight ends. So, if you would,
the tendency is when you see and have a guy like Bowers coming back in Washington, then all of a sudden you see Gilbert and also Dell out there, and you got Lucky coming in and Sperlin coming in. He's going to be really good. Just Todd Hartley just got the message there out to everybody, and these kids want to play in a system. But I think one guy that's going to flourish maybe that we haven't seen is Washington. He would have been catching a lot of these balls this spring. He's only been targeted 12 times in 2 years because of being hurt and everything like that. But I could see him being a guy that takes a lot of pressure off of Bowers because of the underneath stuff. It's really going to let Bowers get out in the seams more. And also you got Gilbert doing that too.
Have you ever run
as far as rooms? Saw Larry Brown last night played tight end for us. We had Larry Brown, Jermaine Wiggins, Javaris Johnson, Randy McMichael at one time. That's 4 pretty good guys. But all of them had pro careers, but I think it's just I don't think I've seen two better guys than Gilbert and Bowers. I mean, if you look at it, in the last 2 years, the number one tight end in the country was Gilbert in 2021, 20, and Bowers was 2021, and they're both on our team. So I think he's definitely right there as far as I don't think you've seen it. And I had the best tight end that I've ever seen play for me at Oklahoma, Keith Jackson. You talk about somebody could do everything now. We had him catch punts one year. Switzer said, "Look, I'm tired of seeing these guys drop the ball. Put Keith back there. I know he'll catch it."
Tight end returning punts. I love it.
6'5", 260 back there. Keith could do about anything. He also played the cello, which you don't find many guys tight end playing a cello.
Wow. Did not know that. But real quick, have you ever run 14 personnel?
Have you ever eaten a Euro pie?
Well, I'm just saying it was one of the questions. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, definitely. And you know, the guy that really wants to get in there is Carter.
Well, I was going to ask, like,
Carter
what does Georgia's jumbo formation look like this year?
Get in there on the goal line and let him catch. No, he's 1 for 1. But Carter could go into that group and play. I mean, he can make an imprint in there. So we're good there. We can worry about a lot of things, but that's not one of them. And I don't worry about receiver near as much as I did going in the spring, seeing Blaylock and Kyrus back out there. And of course, McConkey and Mitchell are first team SEC guys. They can play for anybody. I really think they got the skill set and the game management type plays. They just look at their tape. They made plays against SEC guys over and over.
Yeah, I'll take Georgia's top 6 wide receivers against just about anybody. That is a hell of a group.
Coach, you mentioned Carter in that jumbo formation. Who takes Jordan Davis's spot? What does that jumbo formation look like now?
Well, you got a lot of guys that could get back there and do it. That's for sure. They had Mims do it the one spring game 2 years ago. I mean, he could do it. He's that kind of guy. Have you seen him dunk? Look on YouTube. He's got that kind of skill level. That'd be a good way to get him in. But hey, that's what Kirby said. Hey, we're bringing you back in the jumbo package, man. I don't know. That's a joke. But I'm glad Mims is here. He's a Georgia guy. He loves Georgia. He just had a tough deal, and everybody's got I mean, it's something I always felt. You just don't love your kids when they do something right. You know, when adversity strikes, that's when you got to help them a little more. And this kid comes from a good family, and he went out there to see what was out there, and he realized what we have here. And that's just my own words, but I'm glad we got him.
See, you love your kids all the time. My love's conditional. If my son acts up, then he's not my son anymore.
I don't know about that, but the biggest problem with your son, though, is he'll whip your ass because
exactly. You have to step lively around that boy.
He would pin you.
He is
pretty quick. You talk about a wrestler. Everybody's always talking about stories, me telling stories, but we had a situation. We had this kid at North Carolina was a scholarship quarterback, but he was also an ACC wrestler and won the 177 pound. His name was Hoffman, and he could never get on the field on our football team. So he's always a scout team quarterback. And we had a coach that was there named Al Groh, who everybody knows ended up coaching in the pros and good coach. But, Al was a very stern guy and wanted everything to be right. And he was on Hoffman really hard one day. And we were down on the offensive end, and everybody heard a big hubbub down there. Well, he jumped on Hoffman one too many times, and he turned around and pinned his ass right there on the field and had him down and getting ready to submit, and they had to pull him off of him. But it was pretty cool. And we had some film of that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why I step lively around the boy. I don't want to be put on my back. All right, folks, we appreciate everybody tuning in early this week. We know Dayne has some stuff he has to do. We're going to let him go. Appreciate everybody adjusting your schedule to be a part of it. Loved all the questions. Let's do it again next week. We'll try to be back at our normal time on Tuesday at noon. We will see you all then. For our podcast sponsors, remember to hit up Your Pie on Tuesday. Do it today. Swing by Athens Ford, grab a new or pre-owned vehicle. Hit our friends at Dead Socks. Use promo code HOMER, HOMER, to get 40% off. And of course, go out to academia. They always have something fun going on out there, especially the Harry Potter trivia night. So check out all our sponsors and check out our show next Tuesday at noon. We'll see you then. Take care.